君はコスモを感じたことがあるか。
Bem-vindos ao podcast Saint Seiya, podcast de Cavaleiros do Zodíaco. Voltamos depois de janeiro, que não acaba nunca, né, Laura? A gente finalmente estamos em fevereiro.
A gente fez live em janeiro? Não, fez live em janeiro, é verdade.
Pô, temos retrospectiva, tá tudo certo.
Tudo
Voltamos
certo.
então em fevereiro com um podcast diferente, Laura. Hoje estamos somente eu e Laura aqui. Como já anunciado no Discord e também lá no YouTube, né? Vocês viram aí a notificação que a gente ia chegando aqui. Ó, o Jonathan já aparecendo com a gente aí. Bom dia não, né? Boa noite, no caso. Então, hoje...
Vai ver que ele tá no lugar que é dia, né? Se ele tá viajando.
Pode ser dia. Hoje, gente, é um podcast diferenciado. Estamos na segunda casa de fevereiro. Hoje é um dia diferenciado que a gente vai falar português só agora com vocês. E a gente vai mudar para falar em inglês com nossos convidados. Hoje a ideia é de fazer um bate-papo, como muitos anos a gente não faz. Lá nos primórdios do podcast a gente fazia bate-papo, inclusive com a Laura, foi uma das convidadas.
Vai ter sim.
Bate-papo podcast Saint Seiya. E nós vamos bater um papo hoje com um podcast de Cavaleiros do Zodíaco lá dos Estados Unidos, o Saint Cosmocast. Nós trouxemos os anfitriões, os hosts do podcast para conversar aqui com a gente sobre Saint Seiya, sobre a experiência deles com Saint Seiya, sobre Saint Seiya nos Estados Unidos, como eles...
Tudo que a Toei quer saber.
Exatamente. Então a ideia é trazer eles aqui, vai ser um podcast inteiro em inglês. Então a partir de agora não, quando eles entrarem vai ser só em inglês, e a gente não vai fazer aquele esquema tipo de fala uma coisa e para e fala em português pra vocês o que aconteceu. Não, a gente vai conversar como se conversa com uma pessoa normal, em inglês mesmo. E aí depois, né, se tudo der certo, com o vídeo no YouTube, a gente vai colocar as legendas, né, da melhor maneira possível. E também a gente pode fazer um podcast depois, comentando algumas respostas e tal. Então, a partir de agora vai ser um podcast em inglês, né, Laura? Estamos prontos para isso?
Vamos ter que estar, né?
Vamos ter que estar. Então é isso. Queria dar as boas-vindas e recebam com muitas boas-vindas aqui nossos amigos Ramses, Benjas e Jackie. We're gonna put them on the stage. Yeah. There we go. We have our guests in here. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Ramses. Welcome, Benjas. Welcome, Jackie, to the podcast.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Right. Hello. Thank you very much for having us. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado.
Very good. All good. Was it super weird that we did like a Portuguese introduction with?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. No. We respect it. We respect you guys, and it was really interesting. I caught a couple of words here and there.
Good. Yeah. So the idea, I just talked to them, like I previously talked to you, that we're gonna do a conversation here. There won't be any simultaneous translation because I'm not even good at that. And yeah, we're super happy to have you here. We used to do this kind of chat with other fandom websites or creators, or even people from the production in Brazil, of course, and dubbing actors way back in the past of our podcast. But then we stopped for a while just because things happen. So it's nice to sort of kickstart that side project of the podcast as well, with you guys coming aboard.
All right, cool. Yep. Thank you so much for inviting us. We one of the goals I wanted to do with the podcast was to kind of like bring us a little bit together to the international community as well. So it's like we want to share like our experiences in the English speaking world, and also share it, and also we want to be part of it as well. So I feel like this is gonna be like our first major step for that.
That's nice. That's good. I'm happy for that. Yeah, I would love to talk more, for instance, with the Spanish-speaking fandom, but I don't speak Spanish, and I can't even scratch on it, so it's super hard. I mean, imagine how cool it would be to talk with the Japanese, for instance, fandom, but that's way over. That's an impossible.
Yeah, the one I really wish I can speak to is the Chinese. The Chinese
Yeah.
fandom is incredible, and like I really want to know. I really want to know what's going on with them and stuff like that. We're always fascinated by some of the stuff because we read the news. It's like we see these new things, like we want that, Man,
Yeah.
good stuff.
And there's a lot of stuff that we don't know what's happening there. We have this news about a Tencent live action that we always joke about in the podcast. Where is it?
It's been like 6 years.
about
They announced it like 6 years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah, right. It was almost there with the yeah. So that's what we're gonna have here. And the way that we always start this podcast, guys, is asking the guests, how did Saint Seiya come into your life? So if we could start there, I think it's gonna be a good place to start. So you can kick it off, Ramses. How did Saint Seiya come into your life?
Usually for me, I always like having ladies first. So Jackie, would you like to go first on this one?
Would you like me to go first? I was trying to figure out if I could add an avatar or not. I don't know. It didn't work anyway.
So good.
Hi everybody. My name is Jackie. I was introduced to Saint Seiya in a kind of very interesting way. See, I was actually born in Chile. I moved to the U.S. in 1993. When I went to visit my grandparents in 1996, I believe, yeah, it was around March. That's I happened to catch Saint Seiya in open air television over there. I was riding to this sort of mythology kick that I really like seeing and just reading mythology in general. So the coincidence was just like a match made in heaven, if you will. I was wondering, what is this amazing thing? I had already grown up exposed to anime as a child in Chile too, so the fact that it was anime didn't take me by surprise. At the time in the US, catching anything anime open air, it was still very rare. But nonetheless, I just like that it was like it just caught my attention right away that it was mythology, but it was a story. It was a story with its own spin. Oh, and that the most memorable thing is that the very first episode that I happened to see was 12 Temples with Shaka. And from there, my uncle happened to be taping off the TV airings. So I was able, he said, like, okay, if you're really getting into this, at least start watching from 12 Temples. So I never got to watch Saint Seiya in order.
Okay.
We're talking from 1996, not until 2020, when it was became available on Netflix for streaming in English.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my trip to Chile at the time was maybe about 2-3 weeks. So I only got as far as seeing, I believe, the beginning of the 8th Temple, Scorpio. And I was like with the cliffhanger. So from there, after my uncle kept recording on the TV, eventually he will send me videotape recordings. And of course, yes, but it was in Spanish. And that's how I was able to watch most from 12 Temples up to the end of Poseidon's. I never got to see anything before 12 Temples, ever.
Oh, really?
Until 2020. But what can I say? I really was enamored with the series. And my hope was, since the anime boom was starting to pick up in the US, I was hoping that the series would eventually get aired. But we'll get more into that.
Yeah.
But let's just say, whatever small bit that Saint Seiya has shown up in the US, I've definitely been there.
Okay.
But I kind of eventually they kind of like, it was always in the background for me, but I lost touch with it because of the lack of sources available to the US or the English speaking audience, I should say, because it's really more about the English speaking audience that we get our hands at. And that also goes, for anybody, for a lot of people in Europe, aside France and Spain and Portugal, and a lot of Southeast Asia. But so I remember years past, I was into other things. I remember hearing about Santa's show, and it caught my attention that one, for example, was it was going to be feature female, like a female lead or so. So okay, interested, but it fell in the background. and then comes 2018. Boom! My company actually announced the licensing for it in English. That just came out of the blue. So
Oh wow.
I was like, "Oh, I remember that Saint Seiya." But the funniest thing for me was that of all crazy things that people did something during the pandemic, they remember for me was that I landed onto the Netflix English dub, and I watched that. From there, I got back into it, and I'm dragged a few friends down to say help with me.
Yeah, I know it is.
That's my
interesting.
story.
That's a very interesting story. It started in the 90s, but then it had like this gap
Yeah.
into the Netflix thing. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Because would you like to go next?
Actually, if you don't mind, would you allow me to be last?
Oh, sure. Okay, fine. So I grew up in Mexico. I actually was born in Los Angeles, California, and very early on, like I learned English very early on, thanks to like watching a lot of television. Like when you watch a lot of television, you kind of pick up on a lot of stuff. I used to watch a lot of stuff like Sesame Street and like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and those shows kind of like helped me told me a lot to speak English. So I came, but then when I was like 3 years old, I went to live in Mexico, and I spent a good chunk of my time down there. I spent like 10, 12 years down there, and it was a difficult time for me to understand the language. And one day, a friend of mine who also was kind of like bilingual as well, but he was more versed in Spanish and English. He showed me this show. Like we were just playing video games one day, and like, he's like, "No, we gotta stop and watch this show. You have to watch it with me." And like, I'll watch this with you. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll watch this. And we were watching the first episode of the Asgard arc. And that was like my very first episode. And so I always remember that. I always remember like just vividly, just like where I was like in like 94, just like sitting like in awe of what I was looking at. I knew what anime was. And like, cause I grew up watching those, cause like Jackie said, like there was anime on television, but we didn't have like the word to actually say what it was. We had like Robotech.
Got it. Yep.
Dragon Ball wasn't a thing yet, but like the big one I remember at the time was Robotech. So, and then like and that kind of like led me into like this whole of like finding more anime, and also like kind of forced me to like brute forced me to learn Spanish as well, in a weird way, and. I moved back to the United States like around 97, 98. Okay. The show had already ended. It's run in Mexico at the time, and but it was still one of those things where it's like I was still a huge fan. So around 97, 98, that's what I would say. Like that's like another big boom period for like internet access, especially in the United States. When things were starting, like when broadband internet was starting to become a lot more common, was starting to become commonplace, and places like libraries started having internet accessibility. And I was just on the internet all the time, just reading up about like Saint Seiya, and then I saw because we only saw the Poseidon. I didn't know there was a completely other part that we didn't get in like, animated, and there was this really cool stuff, and I was like, oh my god, I want to know more about this. And so it's like 2001. The 2001 was it 2001 when the OEV started? Yeah,
I think it started in 2002, I guess, but I think it got announced in 2001, I guess.
Yeah, so around that time, that's when I started kind of going back into the fandom as well, because like I was really excited, and like the animation looked incredible, and I liked I liked everything I was looking at. I liked the fact that like they got so many of the old people to come back to do a lot of the stuff. Yeah. And around that time too, that's when we had the unfortunate English version by Beak, which is a complicated story onto itself. But
I will defend that song though, because I do like it.
yeah. Only for Soup Rules, man. What can I say? But no, I mean, I watched that dub, unfortunately, because it was also like, hold on, let me tell you why. It was because it was the lead into a show I really liked watching, because it was the lead into the He-Man cartoon that came out in 2003. So I was like, I was watching. I love that cartoon. I think that's like like I was willing to suffer through a bad dub to watch that. It's like crossing a river of spikes just to get to a cake at the end.
Okay.
That's my defense on that show. But it kind of gave me understanding too, as like what was being edited and stuff like that. Like I already had an idea, like cartoons were being edited because like I was like living where I was. I lived in what they call a border state, so I was in between Mexico and the United States.
Good.
So I knew that they were doing some weird stuff with like cartoons.
Okay.
And and it's always I always go back to this instance where because Sailor Moon that started airing in Mexico. I was also watching it in English as well. And and the funny thing was, the first episode. You know, she gets her powers. You know, she mask yada yada yada. I don't know what the second episode is in the English version, but the second episode in Spanish and then the subsequent in Japanese, because they went in Japanese order, was this episode where like all the boys turned into delinquents and they started doing like delinquent stuff. And then I was like, at that point, I was like, they did some stuff to this show. They did some absolute stuff to this show, and I knew. That's why at an early age I was like, no, I think they did some stuff in English, and that's where I learned. That's where young Ramses learned about censorship.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
So
and then he was never the same again. The poor soul.
So going back to 2003 and 2003, I also had a job.
Okay.
And at the same time too, that's when they were also releasing the uncut versions of the series on DVD, and I was picking those up as they were coming out, but like it was just not price effective at the time. Remember, this was 1990. This was 2003, and you were still getting DVDs with like 4 or 5 episodes on disc,
Crazy.
and this was $24.99 American. Which adjusted for like inflation to 2025, let's say like $35-$36 American after inflation. So it was a choice between either buying a new game or buying or buying a DVD or having lunch.
Yeah, like 5 episodes only.
So so unfortunately I had to like part ways with those DVDs because like it was just way too cost prohibitive for me to continue buying those DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and you know, Manga came out, and that was a little bit more price effective because I believe around that same time, it was under Viz Media, and Viz Media had released them under their Shonen Jump line, and the Shonen Jump line was what I liked about that. What I like still is they kind of lowered the price on a lot of their books. So I started picking those up as they were coming along because they were like $8 American, and that's really good compared to like the $15-$16 to another manga series. So it's like, fine, I can $8 is I can eat $8. Anything more, it's like that's kind of iffy. So that's why it's like, you know, fine, I'll pick up the series. And then like I was off and on with the series, you know, I had it in the background, and like I was thinking about like, you know, I wanted to do something with the series, and you know, it means a lot to me because I know so much about what's going on, and I know so much of like from like the fandoms, and I know so much about like what's going on, and I wanted to do this podcast since like 2016. But what kind of led to me, and if you can give me a few minutes here to be serious, because this is very recent that this happened as well. Rather something that happened. My father had passed away, and one of the things I said to myself was like, because I've been struggling to find a job, especially with what's going on in the job market here in the United States. Yeah. I wanted to do something to keep myself entertained, and something that he would look at and be proud of. And that's why in 2020 I started the podcast.
Nice.
And then the world happened. And then what happened with the world happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were in the middle, and also like we were in the middle of moving and stuff like that, and you know it was chaotic, but we went through a lot of it. And I was following the CGI animation that was also on TV, but I was really impressed with the new dub that they made for Netflix, which I'm now like or rather like this company that makes it, it's Sentai Filmworks. Those guys did an incredible job with the dub. I'm very happy with it. And like,
which side note, Sentai Filmworks is in the city I live in.
That's nice.
So but yeah, no, and like one of the things that and like I said, like I felt like one of the things that I wanted to do was just kind of like talk the praises of the series, especially since it's now available like in a place that people can watch. For a minute it wasn't, but now it's on Crunchyroll, and like most people who like anime have a Crunchyroll account, so that's why it's like we push kind of like to people to get to watch it on Crunchyroll, and and this is where you are right now. Like I'm like where this is actually year number 5 of the podcast, and like it's been an incredible ride to do this show, and like I've and we have some bumpy rides along the way, but having Jackie and Benjas with me is like has been the saving grace for me. And like we started with Benjas. There was a couple of hosts that we had, but like it was Benjas who came in soon afterwards, and then we had Jackie, and we kind of found our groove from there. And like I feel I'm proud of having these two as my co-hosts to to give me to keep me sane, and to also like I'm not just, I don't feel like I'm talking in a void, and I won't feel like I'm not talking like in an echo chamber, as they say here in the United States. So for me, but yeah, that's pretty much like the origin from like how I got into Saint Seiya to like how the origins of the podcast. So there you go.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Thank you.
Oh, well, if I may, the reason why I chose to go last or asked to is because I feel like I am the odd man of the group, because I am not from the United States. I am Mexican, and I live in Mexico my entire life. So my perspective is a little bit different, as well as my circumstances, to Ramses and Jackie. My experience with Saint Seiya is more traditional, if you will. I basically grew up watching the show. I've talked about this on our podcast, but I literally don't remember even when I started to watch it. It's just one of those things that I as far as I can remember, the show must have come out when I was like 6 or 7, maybe. So that's barely the time when you kind of start remembering things from your childhood, right? So I don't remember starting to watch the show. I just remember watching the show. It's always been a part of my life, and the way that I describe it is, for me, it grabbed me by the balls and it just never let go. Yeah. I mean, obviously, and it does help to put a bit of context for the people listening or watching. In Mexico, we got anime. We got a lot of anime series. We got Saint Seiya, we got Ranma Half, we got Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and many others that I'm probably forgetting right now. But we were fortunate enough to get them on open television. So we basically, our generation grew up watching anime, and Saint Seiya obviously was one of those very first series we got. So it grabbed a lot of people from that generation, including myself. And that was it, basically. It also helped that we were fortunate to get the toys, the Saint Cosmocast series figures back then, which I now kick myself in the ass for not keep conserving properly.
I'm with you on that one. I had some as well, and like when we literally,
I have to have some of mine here.
I lost them. I lost them literally.
Oh, that's awesome.
I went from literally when I came here, I was looking through every box I had. Like, where are the toys? And here's the funny part. Because of I'm sorry for hijacking that, because like there was such a scarcity because there was such a scarcity for these figures. We got a lot of the Portuguese figures in Mexico. So there's a lot of like Portuguese boxed figures like flying around in Mexico, like official, because there was just such a high demand for it here in Mexico.
Yeah, which is crazy because mine is Los Caballeros del Zodíaco.
Yeah, we also got the Mexican.
I don't have the Portuguese.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
we just kind of traded off. Okay, cool, but continue, man. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. No, those are the things that make these stories interesting. But yeah,
we got here in Brazil, many of the shows that aired in the 90s came first from Mexico. Like Saint Seiya first dub was based on the Mexican dub.
Oh, really? Oh, so you got some of those mistakes as well?
Oh
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
last year, yeah.
Oh
we,
goodness.
we made mistakes in Portuguese based on the mistakes in Spanish.
Oh, lovely. That those chains are always beautiful to watch in hindsight. Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
It's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, and yeah, well, basically, like that was like my childhood, right? And the series was always a part of my life. I always like I've had moments in which it kind of like goes up and down my interest in it. For example, obviously the let's put it the height of its popularity passes, other series comes along, Dragon Ball explodes, etc., etc. But then, like like what Ramses said, when the OVAs for Hades started to come out, like that again grabbed me very intensely because it was like oh my god, like there's going to be more new episodes, and it was such an exciting time, and that actually led to something wonderful, which was the manga being published in Mexico by the now defunct Editorial Vid, and they published the tankobons here, and I was able to get my hands on them. And that, I think, was the moment that grabbed me the most because it traumatized me to realize just how different the manga was from the anime. And well, there are a lot of instances to point out. Obviously, the Nachi fight with Iki is one of them.
Yeah.
But just seeing how much of the story was different, like that really surprised me, and that got me interested in manga in general. And I was fortunate to get all the volumes for the Mexican tankobon edition, which I still have, and now they're a rarity since that editorial went out of business. And then obviously a few years after that, Next Dimension starts coming out, and that also keeps me on hold. But I've basically always been a fan of the series, but I kind of kept to myself, even in the age of social media. I was never one, and to a certain degree, I still am not somebody that likes to interact too much with fandoms, because you know how fandoms can or tend to be, right? So I was kind of like out of that circle. But the funny thing that got me into this particular circle, and the reason why I decided to start interacting and to actually actively try and participate, was because I started to see on Twitter that there were a lot of people, well, commenting in English, and I assume and I suppose that many of them were from either Canada or the United States, that were starting to talk about Saint Seiya due to the Netflix, to the new dub that had come out. And that got me very interested in trying to participate, because I've always felt, and one of the reasons why I am active in the English speaking sphere is that I've always felt that I understand why the popularity of Saint Seiya has never really taken off in the United States, to a degree, from my perspective, obviously. But I've always felt a bit unfair that it has never been given the respect and recognition that it deserves in that particular sphere. So when I started to see those comments, that motivated me to try and start talking about the series more in English, and that led me to knowing the Saint Seiya Cosmocast. So I saw that what Ramses was doing, and after a while, like, there was something that happened in which I reached out to Ramses and I told him, hey man, like, if there's anything that I can do to contribute or help, just hit me up. And he was kind enough to give me the opportunity, and we hit it off, and I've been a part of the podcast ever since, and I'm very thankful for that.
That's great. It's awesome to have a Sensei podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
So many things to talk about. Come on. It's impossible to have just one person. You have to have co-hosts, otherwise it's impossible to cover everything. Yeah.
No, yeah, and that's why I said like I think I picked the three perfect people to do this with, because it's great that we have like this interaction between all three of us. So, like I said, they're just as important to this show than myself doing all the editing and stuff like that. So.
Oh, don't tell me about it. That's why I have this thing where I don't edit anymore. It's all live, and if it sucks, and then it sucks. I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna edit anymore. It's the worst. But anyway, the one thing that I'm curious about, you all spoke about your experience when you were growing up with the series. What were the other cartoons, being aired at the time, or other things that the kids around you, or I don't know if not kids, but the other things that were sort of engaging, aside from Saint Seiya or aside from anime, for instance?
For me, I guess like it was always comic books because like I grew up in a comic book family. My
God. Yeah.
my father kind of my brother and my father kind of like thrusted comic books at an early age to us, and I read a lot of it, but like for me it was always like I was never into like I love the mainstream stuff. I love Spider-Man, I love X-Men,
Got
I
it.
love Batman, I love all that stuff. But what always got to me and what I'm still am to this day is and what I always liked reading when I was a kid was I loved reading G.I. Joe, the original Larry Hama run from that era. I was really enamored by it because it would look so cool. And then as an adult, I'm looking at the writing again as an adult. I'm like, oh wow, he's saying a lot of stuff that we should have been warned about years ago.
And that's the comics for G.I. Joe, right?
Yes, the comic books.
Because
Yes,
they had an animated series as well, right? And I
yes,
remember
and I love
that.
the animated series. I love the animated series as well. And like I said, like the big thing around the neighborhood was like that video games. Of course, like I used to play a lot of video games. This was during the time that like JRPGs was starting to become like a big thing.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
Final Fantasy was starting to become a big thing. There was another franchise I really liked for the Sega Genesis or the Mega Drive, called Shining Force, which I'm playing again, and I really enjoyed that game. And then, Phantasy Star was also another one that we played a little bit of as well. But yeah, that was starting to become like a big thing, and like it helped that like I knew English, so I kind of had a lot. I was kind of like the go-to guy to explain what they were trying to say from English to Spanish to my friends and tell them like, okay, this is where you need to go. This is what they're saying. You need to go here. So I spent I would spend a lot of time like doing a lot of kind of like back translations to it. So it's like from Japanese to English to Spanish. But and then and like there was like I'm trying to think like what else was like big as well, like around with my peers. In terms of like anime, like in terms of other stuff, like I said, like this was like '94, so this was the time that Batman the animated series and X-Men the animated series, the original ones, were on TV, and those were incredible. And to this day, they still hold up to this day. Those shows, and that was the talk we still talk about those as well. And of course, you had sports. We always played soccer. We always roughhouse and all that stuff. So that was kind of like those more typical things. But in terms of like nerdom and geekdom in that time, it's whatever we had access to, and like what Benjas said, like we had a lot of access to that stuff on open air TV. Like I said, there was Sailor Moon, there was Dragon Ball, there was Saint Seiya.
Okay.
One thing
So
using Sailor Moon, what would screw us was that it used to come on at least. Well, I mean, what they call Central Time. So for me, it came on like at 5:30 in the morning.
Ooh, yeah, and that's.
That was a hard thing.
Oh yeah, no. That was, and that's a common practice because like they this involves me having to sit down and talk to you guys about like how they produce shows in the United States, where it's like what they call syndication, where here in the United States you have various networks. You have at the time it was ABC, NBC, and CBS and Fox. Okay. And whatever else that they can, whatever other network you got on like on UHF's channels, like those channels are above channel 13, those would be syndicated shows, and those wouldn't have like those stations would buy up the shows and be like, okay, let's buy up these shows, and like whatever time slot we can sell these shows, we'll put it on here. And it's like, and they just kind of like haphazard with it. So that's why it's like with Sailor Moon. They aired here where I lived at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I've heard instances where it's like it airs at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, 5:30 in the afternoon, and so on and so forth. It like if you're doing like a deep dive and like look at like old like syndicated like the old like commercials from like television in like United States, and you just see like these different time slots from like different channels, like. And you're like, what is going on? Unlike in Brazil or in like or in Mexico, where like everything's kind of centralized. It's like if it doesn't belong, if the station does not belong to the network, then it's like it doesn't count. Or if it does count, it's kind of like they would own two channels. Like in the case like in Mexico, where it's like TV Azteca owned two channels at the time. They owned Canal 13 and Canal 7.
Mm-hmm.
They would have like alternating stuff on there. So, but there was always a set time for that. There's always like maybe they might fudge it up for like 5 or so minutes because that's how they always do things. There, it's like okay, Saint Seiya's about to start, but it's like it's gonna start here at like 2:30 in the afternoon. But it's like let's give it a this soccer match kind of went a little long, so like let's start it like around like 3:15. Which that's a really funny instances. Apparently, from the first episode of Dragon Ball Z had aired, like there was a lot of delays to it, and during its premiere, they actually because it was aired during what was it? It was the State of the Union was supposed to air at the same time. So literally the episode would start and then now it's the State of the Union. Sorry, sorry guys, you ain't gonna watch Dragon Ball. You got to watch the president say a few words for the rest of the year.
Come on. In the premiere of the Dragon Ball, that was.
But yeah, no, like I said, there was a lot of that going around, and like I said, it's weird. It's weird how it's weird how it was as well because where I mean that's not that's weird, but like living in two parts of the world, it was like you see two very different worlds.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
when I was living in Mexico, like a lot of it was centered around like these animes. Well, in the United States, it was centered around like these American comic book cartoons, like X-Men, Batman, and all that stuff was very, very predominant, like with my kids my age here in the United States, and it was very rare to like kind of find someone that talks about the same things. But like I said, living in a border state and like having to know English, I kind of like knew what was going on with a lot of these shows as well. So
yeah. My question is more about trying to map what are the things that were sort of competing for the child's mind with Sensei at the time, because I always have Brazil, of course, my own experience at the 90s, of course. And you mentioned comic books first. Of course, we had comic books here coming from DC, Marvel, and stuff. But
yeah,
I feel like my generation, when we were 10-year-old, there weren't many kids reading those at the time. And the cartoons in the television, we only had a couple of channels available, and everybody we used to watch the same thing. And the cartoons at the time were very, it was like Bugs Bunny. We had He-Man, I guess, at the time. But, Saint Seiya was kind of the first one where we could see sort of a story, actually. One episode depending on the other. You had to watch the one yesterday, otherwise you're not going to understand a little bit all the context of what's happening. So that was kind of new thing for, at least when I was 10-year-old.
Okay, so
kids were like not experienced that anywhere, so that's why it was such.
But here's the funny thing:
how it went for you guys as well. Or
so I'll be really quick with this. There was another show that preceded this called Candy Candy, and it was a drama about this girl who lived in pre-World War I Michigan, and it's her growing up. And it was done kind of the same thing where it's like if you missed an episode of that show, you don't know what happened next. Like, oh my God, is he gonna be? Is Candy gonna be with this boy, or is he gonna be with this boy? Are they or are they not gonna be with this boy? So there's a lot of that, and like I said, also like there was also like telenovelas as well that were like aimed at children as well. They're like exactly. So like that kind of stuff. So there was competing stuff to get people's attention around that same time. But I guess for me, I lean more towards the animation, like the animated cartoons and stuff like that, because I love that stereoized. That's what we call it, where it's stereoized things, stereoized stories, as they call it.
Got it. Oh, interesting.
You guys want any other guys want to?
Yeah, actually, because the other thing, if you want to look at it from the point of when Saint Seiya first aired on US TV, that was on Cartoon Network around 2003. And it used to, if I remember right, we air either during or right after what we called was the Toonami block, which was the Cartoon Network block airing anime.
It didn't even make it to Toonami. That's a problem.
It was aired outside of Toonami though, but it was also on the same Saturday that they had their like primetime block that it shows some animes that didn't run in the weekday block or the nighttime block.
Yeah.
So
And that was like
yeah.
2002 when it aired on Cartoon Network in US. Okay,
Yeah.
that's around the time when Cartoon Network actually started broadcasting in Brazil as well.
It was
Yeah.
in 2003 here.
Okay.
So if you want to say what is good
It was-
competing with I think at the time Cartoon was also airing Dot Hack Sign on their blog.
Naruto.
Naruto has started airing.
Dragon Ball was already
Dragon
a big thing.
Yeah, it's already like firmly positioned itself there to be like the best thing ever, quote unquote, trademark.
Yeah. So this is like this will be a while before it was still like maybe a couple of years it was on Saturdays it was a Toonami, and then they started doing the Adult Swim anime block too.
Mm-hmm.
So it
That's
right in
correct,
between the two. I think maybe one or two shows came out after Saint Seiya, and then it was the two. So it was competing against a lot of other animes on just that Saturday.
And you also gotta understand too. Also, one thing to understand about Saturdays is that Saturdays are kind of like a dead time for like networks. That's why you see them kind of shovel out whatever thing. Like it's not as prestige as like in other parts of the world where Saturdays like you have to stay at home. You gotta stay at home and watch this. It's always Saturdays like, okay, we're either gonna go out, we're gonna go play a video game, we're gonna go rent a game or rent a movie or whatever. We're gonna not watch TV. Or if you're gonna watch TV, it's gonna be something on HBO, which is gonna be like a premiere of like something that just came out.
Okay. And was it like one episode per week, or was it like every Saturday? Yeah, of course, every Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, it was an episode per week.
Yeah, it was per week, and I think like we only got like 26 episodes out of the 40 that they dubbed.
And there's top. Okay. Yeah, we're getting to that zone. I think Benjas could speak a bit about that as well. Why didn't Sensei happen in America? We often hypothesize. I mean, we have 10 years of podcast here in Brazil, and we all at some point we always go, okay, why didn't it happen? And we theorize, and we, but it's our perspective from Brazil. We're not there. We haven't ever been there. So one of the reasons as to why I brought you guys here is to pick a little bit about that. Why do you think, and from your perspective, why didn't Sensei hit it in the US or the English-speaking market, if we can say that?
You want me to be very honest with you?
Yep.
Yeah.
It did not. It did not have, because like unlike you just mentioned something earlier that that in 2003, other parts of the world, like in Brazil and Mexico and all those other places, they were airing the show on Toonami proper. Like they were airing it like at like the afternoon on weekday afternoons, like around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when everybody was going to be watching it. And they got that rub because it was like, oh, you're watching these stuff, that you're not only watching the stuff that's on Toonami, but you're going to be watching this as well. So I'm pretty so without that leading into it, without the Toonami leading into that what we like to call a Toonami rub, if it was on Toonami, it would have lasted a lot longer. Because the proof of this, and a lot of people are like, oh, it would have worked. No, because like let me tell you why. Sailor Moon had a similar dub by a similar company. And that got extremely popular thanks to the fact that it was airing on Toonami and it was airing with all these other juggernauts of animation as well. It was airing with Voltron, it was airing with Robotech, it was airing with Dragon Ball, it was airing and all this other stuff. And it started becoming like that. It started becoming that pillar. And unfortunately, it just kind of it like for whatever reason, they decided to just put it on what they call a dead time zone and a dead time, like on a dead hour and a dead on a dead day.
Even if it could have been an extension of Toonami, like, hey, we added another half hour. Just the fact it makes such a big difference that it wasn't added within that Toonami block.
Yeah, and I think, and as I said, like I think that would have saved it. I think, in all honesty, if they would have aired it properly on Toonami, it would have like regardless of the dub quality, it would have succeeded.
And do you have any theory why they offset the series outside of Toonami? Is there any reason, any theory from the fandom that's why they did that?
There's been theories about because it also goes to with like what they were trying to do as well, because like it was part of another block called like I forgot the name of it. It was like this video game block, and what they were trying to do is they were having their prestige shows on there. They had like Justice League and like you said, Dot Hack and all those other shows were airing at the same time. and they were hoping that would get caught on by that people would get would like would be watching those shows because they're seeing because they're already tuned in to watch like Samurai Jack and like I said Justice League and all these other shows that are like these big shows for them. So they were hoping that maybe that could have helped, but like I said, like the first time they did it was at 7:00, so it was kind of, and then it was a lead into a better show. So it was like, so we were like, you know what? Let's not watch this. Let's just wait for the other better show to air, which is He-Man, which is again that's another one that kind of dominated it.
Definitely it didn't have anything to do with that it was dubbed by Dick, because obviously Sailor Moon was within Toonami, and it all started with Dick.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I said we're about to say something, Mikos?
No, go ahead.
And that's why I said earlier, and I'm repeating myself here, it's like, regardless of how the dub quality was, especially with all the funny edits, it would have still succeeded if it was not on if it was on Toonami.
Okay. That's interesting.
I've never watched the English dub for Sailor Moon, but don't you? But I have the impression that the Dick dub for Saint Seiya cuts much more of the important parts of the plot than Sailor Moon. So, do you think that wouldn't have made a difference?
Well, it goes without saying that it was cut down. It had to be censored. The thing is that, especially
they bleed Gatorade.
Yeah, they bleed Gatorade. Yeah, but it was serious. It's a U.S. Open air TV airing. They have a much stricter guidelines. So the thing is that companies are trying to get these shows on air no matter what. That's why there has to be so much censorship. But at the same time, because the internet has picked up and communities are building, people in the US are finding out, wait, this was changed, this was censored. And people started complaining that we didn't want to see any of these crazy edits and changes. So we have discussed this hundreds of times between us, and the biggest consensus is that for no reason, Toei has just made also so many badly timed decisions, which they say, because I think no matter how watered down and edited, if Saint Seiya had aired in the mid-1990s on open air, no matter how terrible that was, that was the moment when the anime started cementing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if that had happened, it would be something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it arrived in the US, it really, or I should say, got on air, now that we know this other had happened years ago, it just seemed really old, a little too old in age.
Yeah.
For what people were looking for at the time.
Yeah, especially considering the fact, for example, you mentioned, Naruto. I think it just started 2 or 3 years ago in Japan, and they started airing it in the United States. So it's like that's fresh and new. And then also too, Dot Hack was, I think, a couple years old. Consider that, but then you have Saint Seiya, which came out in 1986, and that also adds to
we also had Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Yeah, it wasn't just Cartoon Network. Let's not forget, we also had there were some animes here on the Saturday block of Kids WV then.
Yes,
along with the Animaniacs, Freakazoid,
Batman and Beyond.
Yeah. All of those shows, yeah. So, because that's what I forgot to mention earlier when you said what was Saint Seiya competing with in the US in 2000. It was competing versus all of that, plus the fact they had at least 1 or 2 anime shows on those blogs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and of course, Pokemon, of course.
Pokemon. Let's not forget Pokemon. Pokemon was really the one that cemented the whole kind of the beginnings of the otaku culture for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know about the offset of the series and Toonami, and the Sailor Moon series that aired was the classic series, right? I remember
that was the mid-1990s dub. That's the one that Toonami started airing, and they actually, that series with Dick was dubbed until about halfway of the second season, Sailor Moon R, and then
it was 2/3 of the way. It was 2/3 of the way done.
Yeah, and Toonami paid for the remaining episodes to finish off Sailor Moon R.
Actually, no. That's kind of a weird. That's kind of a weird situation because what ended up happening was like the show was actually produced in Canada.
Oh,
Sorry. So the show was actually like what ended up happening was it was really popular in Canada, and what ended up happening was like because it was what they call Camcom laws, in that whatever's produced in Canada, they get a grant from the Canadian government to produce these shows. So because it was so popular, they're like, you know what, let's just dub the rest of it, and then like if whoever wants to buy it buys it. So like, they ended up dubbing the rest of the series in Canada, and then they're like, oh no, you guys want to buy it? And then they see the popularity in the United States. They're like, yeah, sure, just send those last 17 episodes with us, and that the rest was history.
Oh, okay. Or maybe that's why. But that's what I have read, that it was Toonami had paid for it. They paid for it in some way. So
yes, they did pay for it in some ways, but it's like it was produced by it was done under like Canadian laws. So thank you, Canada.
yeah. I think they want to bring it over, so I guess it was Cartoon Network. They say like, okay, they'll buy the remaining episodes together.
Yeah, which was the right call in my opinion. That was actually one of the better things that they did. It was like, yeah, them getting it like thumbs up. I remember watching that. Like I remember watching it because like they actually did a special thing where they actually aired it all night. They aired an all night block of it, and like I just watched like they aired all those final 17 episodes throughout the night, and I used to have that all recorded, and I used to watch it. It's like those episodes were so good. I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan as well, so I'm sorry, no apologies.
Yeah, we all are. I mean, I was a huge fan of Sailor Moon at the time when I was watching Saint Seiya. I think Sailor Moon came a little bit after Saint Seiya for us in Brazil, and I remember quite vividly. I mean, I love this thing, and so I have the opinion that if someone loves Sailor Moon, you will love Saint Seiya. It's almost like a no-brainer for me.
From what I remember, it was airing also simultaneously at the time in Chile when I first encountered it, and even when I visited again in 1998, it was in reruns as well. They were popular on and all, like they became favorites. Same as that we used to rerun Candy Candy and a lot of other series.
I always make the joke that Saint Seiya and Sailor Moon are like inadvertently tied to the hip. Like they're always kind of together. And like recently when we started figuring out that like, oh my god, they actually were producing their unproduced stuff in the United States before their attempts to do a TV, before they brought the show to the United States, where same thing with Saint Seiya, they did an unproduced pilot for an American show, and then they had and same thing with Sailor Moon, like some way somehow like these two are just find themselves at the same crossroads.
That is true. That is so interesting.
Well,
I didn't know about that.
Since we touched the subject of what if Saint Seiya aired in the US in the 90s, what if Guardians of the Cosmos aired in the 90s?
Oh, wow.
We probably would have slapped ourselves in the face, as once we all became adults and realized what the heck we had said. But we probably would have still appreciated it because it likely that would have actually eventually led to the anime that where it came from. Because again, mid 90s to late 90s, a lot more people started having access to internet, and this started discovering there's more to this series.
Yeah,
so it would have been it would have just jump started regardless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also said one of the things too is that would have been interesting. Like for example, us here in the United States, and then the people like if you live in a border country like I did, where it's like I live between the borders of Mexico and the United States, you'd be watching two different shows at the same time that were with the same theme, without you knowing it.
That would be crazy.
So it's you start to piece things together little by little. It's like, wait a minute, why is this character like this character from this cartoon? And you just start going, and then you look like that picture from Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie Day on the cork board, was like trying to put all the things together, and he's all like, well, we're trying to talk to this person doesn't exist. So it's just gonna end up in a complete another mess if that was the case. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, no, that would have been an interesting time, but no, yeah, Jackie is correct. Like if there was a time that they would have done it, but eventually the truth would have come out either like through like publications at the time like America or something like that, or like or like Wizard magazine. They would have said something to the extent of like, this is based on this show, and we would have learned it like that. So we would have learned one way or another. And but yeah, no, Starstorm and Guardians of the Cosmos, like it would have been a confusing, but it would have been an interesting time, in my opinion, if it would have aired.
What do you think about the pilot episodes?
They're very interesting in the sense of, well, from my perspective, the way that I saw them is, so this is the way that they would approach the original concept and, pardon the expression, but Americanized it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, but I think that that's not a bad thing, because like it's one of those things that it would have been a coin flip, like whether or not it would have been successful. But I think that it would definitely have cemented the series more in the culture and the mentality of the US and maybe Canada if they decided to air those shows there as well. Because I mean, Power Rangers, the success and impact that had on this side of the world, and like nobody knew that it was based on a Japanese series until many years later. So I think it would have been something similar. But yeah, they are very interesting to see how, like, they take the core concepts but try to give it the more traditional senses to it. Like, for example, okay, they have to fight for justice, and there is this enemy that's just evil, and they have to interfere with their plans. Like a very traditional scheme for a lot of the cartoons back in those days, I think. Well, that's the way that I see it.
Yeah, but I always like to play with the idea that since it isn't that complex as well, it's always good versus evil as well. So when I watched that, I could see it making as much success as any other American cartoon series in Brazil that had at the time. You mentioned X-Men, the Teenage Mutant. I always mixed up the order, but the Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There you go.
Yeah,
You got it.
Yeah, I didn't get it, but they're the one. Yeah. I think they would make the same kind of, kids would like it. Probably would like the toys as well. I don't think it would be the greatest hit that it was in Brazil as the animation, but I think it would be a quick start. But the question that I have for you guys, you mentioned that it could be something leading to the actual manga or the animated series, the classic one, the animated. But did Power Rangers did that for Tokusatsu, for instance? Now I'm wondering that.
No. And it has to do with the fact that with Tokusatsu in the United States, especially with how controlling Haim Saban was with everything he had, like good luck trying to get a show. Like he didn't want anything else competing against his show, even if it's his own show, like in spirit. So so for him it was better to scrub any kind of like mention or any kind of like fact. Like it would have been like it would have been like something. It would have been like an interesting fact, but it wouldn't be something that like it wouldn't be something until like much later. I want to say in 2015. That's when like the first Sentai DVDs were starting to get approached from. They're starting to be done in the United States. So it took us almost. It almost took us 20 plus years until it was officially acknowledged that Sentai that Power Rangers was a Sentai, and when they were able to put those shows in United States. So it would, and so that was a very complicated situation with that. So
yeah, so that's what I'm wondering. Would Guardians of the Cosmos lead to the classic, or would have Guardians of the Cosmos Asgard? Guardian of the Cosmos Poseidon, Guardian of the Hades, always a derivative version of the actual story, and after 20 years, oh my god, there's actually an animated series.
It's so hard to say, but for me, I think I would have always say now that I have to say, okay, I haven't watched it, but now that I even watched the original, I mean, even with the English stuff, I find everything up to like right before 12 Temples kind of really a bit on the boring and drags on. I think for me, I wouldn't have gotten as hooked if I hadn't started with 12 Temples, which funnily enough, I ignored the CGI when it came out until 2021. So once again, when I started watching the CGI, it was right at 12 Temples. I had not watched anything of before that.
And the funny thing was, like, and you're there too, Jackie. You got to admit this. Like, I started on Asgard, and I thought Asgard was like the greatest thing ever when I was a kid. But I watch it again, and I'm like, I wanna ram my head into every television I can find. If I have to see one more fight with Alberic, I have to sit down there and see like how much stuff, how many things they can pull out of their collective butts to prolong the episodes.
Yeah. We have a lot of thoughts. Definitely, we watch things, we ruin childhood kind of feelings. Okay, not so much, but with Oscar, yes, we have completely different perspective. I think at least for me, 12 Temples has still mostly held up.
Yeah.
Especially, I remember saying to myself as I was rewatching I was watching the English dub. Then I remember that I got to 12, I was like, oh, that's right, Camus there, and preface that, yes, I am a big fan of KMU. I said to myself, I'm going to be salty all over again and sad and cry. Done and done.
Yeah.
So that has stood the test of time. Oscar did it, but 12 Temples has.
Same with Poseidon. As short as it was, Poseidon was incredible.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, but yeah. Yeah, but you did point, Ramses, earlier on how the new dub made a big difference for the audience, and we knew that was happening, but we didn't know, or at least I didn't know, how important and how impactful that could be for the fandom in the US. And I remember that the time when, because the series also come into Brazil on Netflix at the time, and I remember that we got the original dub in Portuguese, but we also had the Japanese audio with the new subtitles, because at the time we used to have the DVDs, but the subtitles was, instead of doing
based on the dub.
They were based on the
dub.
Exactly. So at the time when I watched Netflix, I was actually reading the subtitle and said, "What Seiya said? What? I didn't know he said that." So it was like a new experience as well when they properly did the subtitles to the original scripts.
It's interesting when you see what's officially translated, because like as someone that has like understanding of history, like it's interesting to see what kind of like things they put into the dubs, and because for example in the new translation, something that kind of went underneath the radar that I really appreciate, and it's something that you don't really think twice until you like put yourself into the mentality of this, is that Cassius is not really a bad guy. He's fighting. He's prideful, but not evil, because he says, "I'm fighting because I don't want a Japanese person to take the cloth," and that's something that kind of got swept underneath that kind of like people tend to forget. Like in the 1980s, especially 1986, 1987, that was the boom period of Japan, and a lot of places around the world were very afraid of Japan. So it makes perfect sense that there was this kind of xenophobia entwined to it as well. So that's why I felt it was kind of interesting that I caught that, and they caught that in this new translation.
And I remember thinking that Seiya isn't so stupid, because in the dubbing they tend to give him a little bit of that stupid kind of personality, which he's has to some degrees.
Okay.
But it's not nearly as bad, I guess, when I was reading the subtitles. Okay, so Seiya he has some stupidness, but not as much as in
Oh no, and props to Bryson Bengas, who the person who dubs the voice in English. He like he has a charisma to his stupidity,
which is important. Stupid.
Like he's the type of guy that like he'll trip on his own 2 feet, and then like roll himself up. It's like, nope, I meant to do that. See, I can do a flip. He has that kind of confidence to it, and it's like it becomes very evident when you see like Asgard again. Like it's like this, like, oh god. Again, I have thoughts, but I'm gonna leave that. That's like there's a show.
The short of it is that if the CJ were to continue, we really would love to see us just watch Seiya fall again and again and again, because we have all come to the agreement that no matter what version of the franchise you watch, Seiya has a problem with gravity, and he's always falling.
He has an ongoing grudge with gravity, and he's always on the losing side. It's him and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah. And we know that for the episode of Shura versus Shiryu, that when they made the jump to escape his attack in the manga, in the classic anime, it was Shun that missed the jump. In the CGI, for whatever reason, they decided to switch places, and it was Seiya that missed the jump.
Yeah.
So that kind of just
they knew, the writers knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
The writers absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think we finally figured it out, Laura, why Saint Seiya didn't make it in the US. I think our our guest finally calmed our minds around that. That's awesome to know. You did touch about Starstorm. What about Starstorm? Because I understand Guardians of the Cosmos, but Starstorm, that's not something that I think.
There's a simple answer to it. There's a simple answer. There is an absolutely simple answer to that. This was 1996. We figured this out already. I already cracked the code on this already when I saw the date. If it would have aired in 1997, it would have been in competition with Hercules, the Legendary Journeys, and Xena Warrior Princess. So they're aiming for that crowd.
Wow. But, I mean, those are great shows. I mean, that final look doesn't even compare to that. I mean, what were they thinking?
But that's the aim. That's the aim. That's what
keep in mind that it was not only a pilot. Well, yes, it was a pilot. They were trying to pitch it. So of course it's not to be considered what it would have been the polished version shouldn't have happened.
And like I said, like before that, they had like 3 or 4 Hercules like made for TV movies. So again, I'm pretty sure someone must have caught wind that they're gonna make a TV show of it. And like we need to capitalize on it, and we need to capitalize with something with like mythology and this and that and blah blah blah.
Which wasn't wrong. I mean, myself, I was a Hercules and Xena fan, and that's why. And just because of that, it made me gravitate towards Saint Seiya. So,
now
way it's kind of shame that they didn't greenlight it because it probably would have attracted a crowd, and I think eventually could have led to the create a foundation for whenever the anime finally arrived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, we only what's left is 10 minutes. We can't really decide on what those 10 minutes were. There's potential in those 10 minutes, but it's also like we're not gonna stand here and like laugh at it either.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
So, but like I said, like it's always I always say like I always like acknowledging the fact that like it's campy, but you gotta look at it from like the perspective of this was never supposed to be shown to people. Right into the Cosmos and Starstorm was never supposed to be shown in public. That is something that was supposed to be shown to people that are going to be investing in it. The people are the studios, and like so it's like they're like, okay, this is our show, basic concept of the show. Please give us money so we make this better, please.
Got it. Okay, I like the idea that it was on the bandwagon of Hercules and Xena. I would love to have a Saint Seiya series around with that kind of treatment, I guess.
And it was like I said, it was around that time where they were like you could not escape any of those like copycat shows, like because I think they had like a Mortal Kombat show, they had like a Crow TV show. Oh my god, like, I'm trying to like figure like they were pivoting hard in the very late 80s into the 2000s, doing those kinds of shows. Even themselves, they did like Cleopatra 2040, Jack of all trades. I'm a huge fan of those shows because like they're just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I have.
Yeah, but one thing that we always keep whenever the U.S. leaves, the people that have touched upon Saint Seiya in English, they have liked it. They have definitely and I think maybe because of the timing that even the Netflix dub was released, and it was very well done. People have liked it. They're so there is an audience for it, but the fact is, I think what does not help is that we have all these kind of gaps in between of all the projects and then nothing happening.
Okay.
Interesting. but people have liked it, and it's whatever the powers that be, maybe they, or I guess someone with finance maybe more dumb, because the Netflix dub was actually paid for done by Toei under their supervision.
Yeah.
So I can say out of every not the greatest decision over the years with Saint Seiya, definitely that this is the one time they actually did something right, and they did it right.
Yeah, more and more. It seems like more and more Toei is trying to get like themselves more in the position of like selling the series with like with a pre-made dub and everything. So, and you can tell because like you can see how hard they're trying to push stuff like Dragon Ball and One Piece here in the United States, and they want that kind of same popularity with it. But just the problem is, it's like comparing oranges to apples. It doesn't make sense. Because like what Toei wants is that they want, as I say, because like I after talking to a lot of people in the industry, they are asking for they want exorbitant prices for the show, and it's like they want the show to be like on like a network. They want the show to have like I don't know like we have in the United States we have here Walmart. I don't know what's like the equivalent like a Walmart here in Brazil. Like what's like a big chain that sells clothing.
Big general store that has everything, but
yeah, like they want to have shirts on those like places.
Got it. All right.
Like they want it to be ubiquitous, as I say, Laura. It's like they want people to see that like with all of it. But the problem is with like considering like how little interest there is from like the major companies.
Okay.
And the only people that are interested are like what we like to call boutique companies, and their asking price for that is unfeasible. That's why that's why I always tell people don't expect Saint Seiya whenever you hear like about like discotheque. As much as I appreciate, I've actually talked to a lot of the people who work at discotheque, and they've told me that like it's never gonna happen unless Toei like sells the series at a lower price.
Got it. All right.
So
you have to start somewhere. But I know as far as the audience, it's there. They wouldn't you there definitely. But we're just kind of stuck in this limbo, and I know Toei probably wants to be able to get that from like what they can get from Latin America that they'll consume it, but where the US still has to build up to that level as far as fandom. There's fans, but
yeah, but I feel like Toei also needs to do their shit right because they're trying.
Oh, absolutely.
They're trying the CGI, the live action. They're trying, and it's part of their sort of market strategy to do Hollywood IPs. It's on their their decks.
Perhaps with the movie, that's what they were trying to do, but they didn't. Let's just say there really was hardly no marketing for it, any advertising for it leading up to the movie release, and I think it was more of the few fans that know it were trying to promote it. What just to the short of it wasn't the greatest movie, obviously, but it wasn't that bad either, and it would have still had its. I think that's why it found some life in Netflix. So people discovered it. There was enough people that still enjoyed it, but that's the thing with Saint Seiya. For some reason, it just never gets that much promotion. I think though, if Toei ever considers maybe lowering the prices or them just doing the same thing they did for the classic series, people would watch it. People know that there's more to the series because we have the manga officially licensing, even if right now technically it's only available digitally on the business platform, but it's there.
Another thing too that needs to be said, like there's like Saints like when it comes to certain series, I want to go back to Sailor Moon for a bit. When it comes to Sailor Moon, when it was making its big re-debut in 2014 with a new dub and everything, there was someone behind that series who was extremely passionate. I knew that person, not personally, but we've had like long conversations, and like I knew him through a friend of mine. Like I wouldn't consider him a friend, but they're a really good acquaintance. But this person knew very well how the series worked, and knew how to promote the series, and knew how to sell the series to everybody. And there's nobody in the United States to do that at a higher level that can do that. And the worst part is, the only viable option would be like Viz, because right now Crunchyroll, which is in part Sony, they're just burning through all their employees like nothing. Like literally, I knew friends that worked at Crunchyroll that worked for 6 months and they were suddenly let off. And they're acquiring stuff left and right that they don't even remember they owned. One of the big controversies I like bringing up with them is that at one point there was a Kickstarter for an anime. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dirty Pair.
Yeah,
But
rings a bell.
Okay, so what ended up happening with Dirty Pair is that they had a Kickstarter for it, and I believe the company that made it, that was fundraising. They got a lot of fundraising and everything. The problem was they got acquired by Crunchyroll, and they were still like, oh yeah, we're still gonna make it under them, and they let off all those people who worked on it. There's nobody that works on that's working there from that company. And they literally didn't even know they had the rights to that series. So it leads to a lot of people. So that's why it's very important that you not only have to have people that it's very important that someone in the inside has to be passionate and knows exactly how to promote the series as it is. And so that I feel like that's an equally important factor to it, because if not, you're not gonna like the series is gonna fall under the cracks, and no one's gonna pay attention to like what's happening right now. Where unfortunately, like it's on Crunchyroll, but unfortunately, it's like they make no effort to like promote it, and it's like places like mine, like us, that literally talk about it all the time.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't think even Toei has that for Sensei right now, to be really honest with you guys. And I have thought about it.
We've discussed that a lot.
It could be as great as it could be, but Toei Animation needs to get their shit together on Sensei, to be honest.
Completely agree.
We have the impression that people at Toei doesn't really understand what makes Saint Seiya be Saint Seiya. So
bingo.
Drop new shows.
You hit it right
new
there.
shows and
that unfortunately, if I may add to that, is a mentality that, for example, we discussed that. Well, rather I should say, because out of the three, I'm probably the biggest, let's say, detractor of Toei out of the group. Like I'm the one always shitting on it, and unfortunately, that is a mentality that in the Spanish-speaking sphere, that's very prevalent as well. Nobody has any confidence, nobody has any trust in Toei. We genuinely think that they don't know what the fuck they're doing at this point with the franchise. Like a lot of us believe that Saint Seiya would be better off for the audio-visual aspect of it if it just changed companies at this point, because even though I think that they just released their financial status for their franchises, and I think Saint Seiya internationally is still at 4th. I think that's the reason why I still hang on to it, but they've clearly demonstrated by a lack of investing properly into the series they've been releasing, by just putting out content and series that are very average at best or mediocre at worst. They continue to keep falling flat on that regard. That's why a lot of us are very, very nervous that if a Next Dimension anime were to be made, like we don't have any trust in them at this point.
Yeah, they have a very bad track record in the past few years, to be honest. On our podcast, I'm actually, because I come from a place that I don't think Toei will ever, hand over Sensei to anyone, to be honest. I don't think that will happen because of that. This is the 4th anime for them, and no one would ever do that. Company. Yeah, exactly. Money is money, and it's all about money at the time for them. And I do feel like, okay, Toei gave us the animated series, which we love. They gave us the haters, little bump in there. Omega is, for me, is fantastic. But in the past 2 years, I think the last projects are a little bit...
Soul of Gold lives to be desired, to say the least.
But I still feel like, I think Soul of Gold to some extent is where Toei Animation, we can do a big buzz while expanding absolutely nothing, because they did. It was a huge thing because of all the God Cloth and the Goat God Cloth, which sold, I don't know, everything.
It really was. It said that it was mostly an anime to sell the the figures.
Yeah,
because
but Saint Seiya is about that. Saint Seiya is a story to sell figures. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's no problem
not
in
gonna-
that.
I'm gonna stay very, very quiet, but I have to agree as well. Full Gold is like a glorified toy commercial, and like same with and unfortunately they do a good job at it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
it looks very nice, but I have my disappointment with that series.
What I
They
think
did wrong to
that's
my favorite character. That's why.
I mean,
I
I
did
know-
my character very, very bad.
don't even begin. Oh, come on. What they did with the Aquarius Family was absolutely the worst thing I've ever seen. But yeah. But aside from that,
why I think that Self Good was kind of unnecessary. I actually enjoyed watching it because I was at college back then, and I would come back from college, and the episode would start airing. Like they would just be home. So I just felt like I was in like the old days, like when I was a kid.
Yeah, I agree.
Just get home and watch TV.
Feeling. I totally agree with that. I mean, I didn't like it for that. So it's kind of like I'm just ignoring in my mind that certain episodes and it was just completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not necessary. We could have something else.
But it was fun. It was different from.
Yeah, it was fun.
Just talking about stuff, and feel free to. It also, before we continue, I didn't check with you, Ramses, Jack, and Benjas, but how far can you go with this? Because what's your time? And I don't want to, impose anything. How far can you go with the podcast in terms of timing?
Whatever you guys feel comfortable. But I'm more. But also too, it's also like whatever my co-hosts feel like. Cause like I can. Yeah. You're talking to a guy who live streams, and I can go for like 12. I sometimes do 12, 13 hour streams where I'm just playing the same game over and over again. So it's like you're talking to the wrong person to say about time.
I'm gonna see you guys. I think I'm mostly set my book how as far as watching Saint Seiya here in the US and the experience. But if you have any specific, would you just go ahead throw him at us or even Benjas?
Oh, I can keep going as well. Like I can continue for an hour or two more, like no problem. I love talking about the series, so you won't stop me there in that regard.
Awesome. I'm so sorry. I should have checked earlier, but I didn't. Okay,
no, that's fine.
Yeah, so now we're just almost skewing over the spin-offs and talking about series as a whole. But before I go that, Toei is trying, in the sense that they clearly did the CGI to try to not appease, but at least to reach the audience in the US, the live action the same. I feel like they're not going to, maybe for Saint Seiya they will stop for a while, because the whole Hollywood idea is for the IPs, not just for Saint Seiya. But do you still think it's possible for Saint Seiya to break in the US in some form of capacity?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, I believe it.
I believe it, but like I said,
or with an old thing?
It would have to be the old thing, and let me tell you why. Like I said, when it came to Sailor Moon was like a 20-plus-year-old series when they decided to like relicense it and have like this big revival in 2014. And it was all due to the fact that like they had people that were passionate about it, and they were very passionate about like showing you the product and giving you the best product that they can. And they turned the world backwards to get stuff from Toei, like get better negatives and all that stuff from them. So it just needs somebody that knows the series and knows what they got and knows how to nurture it so it can succeed. And unfortunately, thanks to how the industry works, these things are just I don't know when that's going to happen, but I do sincerely hope one of these days, that there's someone out there that knows the franchise ins and outs, that's working inside a company and is like, and we'll take that risk. By the way, Viz, I'm available. I need a job.
Yes, Viz.
I greatly agree with what Ram just said, because I think from my perspective, again, I do have to emphasize that I have a very different perspective to them because I'm outside of the United States, and well, fortunately, Mexico is one of the strongest countries when it comes to the franchise and the property being available here. But I genuinely believe that it can it can become successful, and it can have a great impact on the English speaking sphere, let's say, not just the United States. I mean, every country that speaks English. But the way that I see it is that Toei needs to get their shit together, as you mentioned previously, because it's not that Toei is incapable of producing good things anymore. They can, but the thing is, and I always say this privately, and also, sometimes I jab at it at our podcast, but it feels, maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm not too immersed in what Toei does and in those other franchises, but just from the way that I look at it from the outside, it's almost that is, if it's not Dragon Ball or if it's not One Piece, or if like Toei rarely gives a damn about their other franchises. Occasionally, they will invest properly on them. That's why I think Sailor Moon Crystal succeeded, because they got the right people to do so. But I do think that they got the right elements to be able to make that a success, and they need to basically restructure the way that they're approaching Saint Seiya, because I think that their approach, they've had very interesting and good ideas, but they've not been able to execute them properly for one reason or another. And I think it's, in the grand scheme of things, a very much a lack of a follow-up. For example, this is an example of just them not knowing what the hell they're doing. In a market like Mexico, where you would have thought that the movie would have been a priority to promote here better, right? It had also terrible promotion. It had a lot of bad, because it was not on the hands. We later learned that was more on Sony, which is the distributor for the movie, than Toei. But them not, basically taking more steps into ensuring that the marketing here and having it be more available and more publicized and with more time for people to digest what they were trying to do, that shows that Toei doesn't really know what they're doing, and that they had good ideas, but they are not good at following them up. And I think that they need to start changing their approach to the series, because clearly it's not a matter of revenue. The series continues to sell. The series continues to make numbers, even in spite of the mishandlings or the shortcomings that it's had. It's still at fourth place, which, considering the fact that it hasn't had an anime in a while, considering the fact that Saint Seiya and Soul of Gold were very poorly received, it's still up there. So that tells you that the value of the property is there. They just need to get it into their heads that they need to invest properly on it and do a project that respects the series more than trying to approach it to appease a particular audience or not. That's the way that I look at it anyway.
Yeah, that completely makes sense, and I fully agree. I'm not sure how deep you guys go on the reports from Toei, but we joke. I'm not sure if we should joke, but I know I didn't like the movie, so I'm not gonna. And if you read the reports on it, I know, like, for 3 or 2 quarters, they were blaming the movie.
Yeah, they were raving the movie for the bad performance.
We loosely follow on the financial reports, but we have read the news on it from other sites. And
like the PDF that they have. So, Toei is bad at the time, right?
The movie was also poorly marketed here, and I think this was a decision by Sony, because the reception of the trailers was bad, and the critics' reception for the movie was bad. So they probably just look at that and say, "Okay, this is bad. So no matter what we do, it's going to be a bomb," and they just didn't promote it. And in spite of that, the movie had a good box office, considering it wasn't promoted officially in almost anyway.
See, I think a lot of and it may be sort of a Japanese cultural thing, that they rely on the loyalty of the existing fan base, which in a market like Mexico and Brazil, that probably definitely could hold its weight. But in the US, that we're so spread out, we absolutely needed that marketing. If their budget wasn't so bad, they should have at least. And you would think, considering that the movie was, there's to say, it was made for the US, you'd think they would have invested in here, whatever little budget. But no, even if it could have been, you think they could have we always say you can reach out to us, even if it would have been something interesting. We would have cooperated something like that, but nothing.
And also,
I don't know.
also too, it feels like a lot of stuff from the movie was kind of like at the 11th hour, because if I remember correctly, and this was, and actually no, this is not remember correctly. This is exactly what happened. Here in the United States, the movie was set to play in approximately 1,000 theaters, like 1,500 theaters. But at the last minute, like literally on the day, they cut that number from 1,500 to 800.
Wow.
So think about it this way: 800 theaters may not be much. Well, actually, in Brazil it is much because like you guys are a huge country, not as big as the United States. So think about think about 800 theaters spread across the United States. Like literally, some people would have to have gone like to like different states or to go watch here in the United States because of that decision. And there's something else and Toei did try to do something. It looked like they were for about a minute they were doing something, because one of the things I liked is that they actually put the series on YouTube for about a minute.
Yeah, they did. That's right.
And that was, I think, like their best idea ever. I think putting those episodes was the greatest idea you could have done, and you should have capitalized.
That was also when the dub was added to permanently to Crunchyroll. Right around then.
So it would have been perfect to like if they were like, look, here, like for a limited time, maybe to like the end of the year, here's all 114 episodes on YouTube. Enjoy. Just free. Here's some ads. Go watch the movie, and yeah, they had it set up like that, but they didn't, and I think that kind of hurt a lot of it as well. And also too, there's also like I think from what I read from a lot of people as well is that there's a lot of fatigue as well from the general public, because they see Saint Seiya and they just want, and they're seeing like, and they're asking the question of like, why are you pushing this series so hard? And you know, some of the people are actually kind of sick of it, and I understand like that mentality, but I understand too. It's like, and like, so like my question I have to ask myself is like, and I think this is something that Toei needs to like consider. It's like people are kind of sick of how of them trying to reinvent the wheel, as I say.
Yeah.
And I think what they should be doing is they have to like learn what they got right now and use what they got right now instead of trying to push something new.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
But I feel like
they
people
capture what I'm sorry.
No, go, please go.
No, I was just like, yeah, just as Ram says, yeah, they should use what they already have, because again, because it exists, and we know that there's other more animated content they've already produced. That's what people really want to see. So instead of getting, we as the fans, we of course want to support Saint Seiya, but between a live action movie that from the beginning it felt kind of like I'm not sure what to expect. If they would have told me the Hades animation was getting an official dub, people will be behind that. People want to see it. The other day we were listening to another English podcast. They do other stuff, but they happen to have an episode focusing on Saint Seiya, and they said, yeah, they want to see more. But I think we need to see less of these newer projects, catch us up to the rest of the world, if you will.
Got it. So the see more is that I'm trying to understand here. What does it mean to see more? Is to see more of the animated series, for instance? Because what Toei seems to be trying to do, and what they seems to understand, is that that doesn't work. We need to tell the story in a new format, otherwise people won't, I don't know, follow. And what you guys are saying is that whatever they used to have already, Omega or the classic series or Hades, they could work on that instead of recreating the story in a different format. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, see, we can watch subtitled Omega, for example, Santa Show, Solo Gold. But for whatever reason, we don't have Hades even subtitled. Well, okay, correct me. Though not the best. It is available on Tubi.
Yes, it is. It's subtitled on Tubi in English, but it's only dubbed in Spanish.
Yeah, But I don't think the it's subtitling. I think it's not even official from anything official either. But somehow they acquired, and we have that English subtitling. So I think that the best thing would be to give us the rest of the story with a dub. I think that would help. Will be the best step for them to take.
Okay.
And put it and put it, go on. I'm sorry. Go.
You go first, please.
No, I was gonna say really quick that, also another big thing is like have prominent marketing, like put it on a network, like put it on adult, like Toonami is still a big thing in the United States.
Oh, really?
You can still put on Toonami, and you still get a lot of people watching it. You need to push that as well. Like you need to push it on a television, or push it like on a format where they can promote it easily. Another thing is, I don't know if they have these in Brazil, but are you familiar with fast networks?
No.
Okay. Maybe yeah. I'll try to explain it. In the United States and other parts of the world,
things like Pluto TV.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Pluto TV. That's a fact.
It's those like it's almost like TV channels, but to like TVs, it's like service with linear programming, like almost like a.
Yes, I have that on my TV, and it has a Naruto channel that's I don't know. It goes Naruto like.
I think Samsung TVs have like their Samsung channels.
Yeah, here in the United States we have Naruto, we have a One Piece channel, and a Sailor Moon channel, and I'm like, you can easily just do a Saint Seiya channel, and I'll put it in the background easily. Even if I'm watching, like, even if it's those really weird episodes in like the middle of the Silver Saint arc, I'll still have it on. Just for like just I can like laugh at it and to see those weird saints of the days, like when they fight against like the ghost saints or something like that, like ghost saints.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I would definitely just let it run in the background. Sometimes you just want to listen, but then eventually you just tune to watch.
Yeah. And go on.
I don't know.
But Benjas, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think it's a matter of taking action, but taking action to work with what is already available and try to maximize it first. Okay, first I'll go with that, and then I do think that they could approach it from a new angle, but I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, they have already kind of a splashed in a way, because there is the new English stuff that is very well received, but they need to make it more available than to just have it in one platform that, from my understanding, Crunchyroll has a very negative connotation and a very negative view in the English-speaking sphere due to a lot of factors that revolve around that company. And, and again, because it's in Crunchyroll, like with Netflix, you get lost in the sea of, the new and hip upcoming series and stuff like that. So it's just going to be, okay, it's available, but it's kind of like buried beneath the other stuff that's more shiny, so to speak. So they need to take action in marketing the series more. For example, one thing that I've always thought is that the approach in marketing the series has always been very, very atrocious in the US. Like, for example, they could take advantage of, the legacy of Masami Kurumada. Sure, he's not a well-known figure in the English-speaking world, but hell, even in, for example, the Spanish-speaking world, outside of Saint Seiya, nobody knows his other works, and they don't give him the respect that he has as an author in Japan, for example, right? So that's not necessarily an issue, but they could take advantage of you saying, this the series that inspired Bleach and blah blah blah. They could take that and use it to try and take the interest of people that had watched those series and to try to promote the classic anime. And from there, as Jackie mentioned, get enough momentum to they can hit with Hades and give it a new lease of life, so to speak. And that way, that can also kind of revive the interest in the manga as well, because even though it is available to read in the Shonen Jump app, because Viz still has the rights to it, and due to the poor sales numbers that it did back then and the reluctance to release the license to another publisher, for example, well, I'm speculating at this point, but it's still the rights for the manga still remain with them. Like, try to give it a new life, maybe with, for example, with the final edition, take that into the English speaking market, that would give it an edge that that could potentially be marketable. But you do need to inject life onto it so that you can get that interest up and running. Because I have seen a lot of people like react positively to the anime with the new dub, and also I found a lot of people on Twitter that were reading the manga in English, and they reacted very positively to it. It's not a very vocal audience, but it is there. So they just need to work to expand that and to work on that. Or it's something that I think not just for the English audience, but also to the rest of us that have lost faith in Toei. Doing something like doing to Saint Seiya what, for example, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was, which is to actually properly adapt the manga and to show it as it was, to make a new series, but that was more faithful to Kurumada's manga, for example. That could revive interest in it if they actually bothered to properly invest on, a good quality animation and, good pacing that can bring hype onto it if they tackled like a new project like that. Saying just an example, right? But they do need to do something. They need to do something, and unfortunately, they do need to tackle it with the audiovisual mediums, which is the anime, because that's that's kind of like the thing that always detonates the interest on the series itself, and then everything else comes afterwards, usually, unfortunately. Well, for better or worse, but that's usually how it is.
Yeah, 100% agree. They are trying. I mean, they have tried. The CGI and the live action was that attempt of retelling the story, but as you mentioned, they veered off not only from the manga but also from the animated series. So, and also, what do you guys think about this new approach coming from both the CGI and live action, which, as we understand, came from the same script, same ideas around how to retell the Seiya story. And there was a lot of changes, not only from the animated series, but from the classic manga, for instance. How do you guys perceive that change? Vandergrad, the whole. I won't speak even about the names, but the whole Seiya is sort of natural, gifted in a way, and other things that they're trying to input on the plot to retell the story of Seiya.
There's things I actually really like about the game, about the game. There's stuff I really like about the concept about the that they did some good ideas that believe it or not, that I might get a lot of hate for. For example, I like the idea of these humans getting wind of what's going on, and them trying to be like, no, we as humans need to need to make our own saints to take on this oncoming threat. Yeah. I thought that was a brilliant idea, but poorly executed.
Yeah,
and that's what, and then like I said, I'm not a big fan. Like I'm not a, when it comes to Shun being a woman, but my biggest problem is that you could have like if they would have done more with the character, I would have been fine. But it just feels like they just kind of just gave they kind of just gave Shun like a new look, and that's it. And I kind of wish that they did more with it. Like I wish they would have leaned more towards towards it if they were aiming for that goal instead of having just a token woman in the team. And that if that was the case, then and the sad part is we see this in season 2. You have a really well fleshed out character in Juné.
Yeah,
and you could have easily put her in with the team as well, and that could have been a group of 6. And she could have, and she would have been perfect. But the problem is, like they were so cowardly, and they're so toothless in it that they didn't take advantage of it. And like I said, going back to one last thing about going with the humans, and then you could have done something with because there's a theme in Greek mythology called homiculai. Did I say it right?
I think you. I don't know if I got it actually. What?
Homiculi.
Homunculi.
It's it's a homunculus is when you make like a living form out of a human. So you can so it's like a demon. Right. It's like a demon made from a human, if you will. So you can
Okay.
so you can tell a story with that. That's a really interesting plot point. They could have leaned in very, very, very well into, but they never did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Again, I have thoughts. It's like I'm also a writer, and I'm like, I see the blueprints right there. You could do something, but you're not taking advantage properly of it.
Mm-hmm. So the execution is the problem here.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I agree. Nice. Okay, but they're going to keep trying. I think that's something for Toei. And Ben has mentioned, Kurumada and Final Edition and all the mangas as well to use that. And sometimes it feels like not. It doesn't feel. It feels like that's what's happening is that Toei and Kurumada Pro is not actually, you know, doing things so very aligned. To be honest.
They're not
So
supposed to be working together, working separate.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm not sure how far they can lean on, for instance, on the Kurumada Pro kind of thing to promote Saint Seiya, which is kind of crazy. But that's how it feels looking at the way they're doing things, you know.
So, just to let you guys know, I hosted some panels at San Diego Comic-Con and at Anime Expo that were like revolving around Sami Kurumada, and there was a ton of interest for his works outside of Saint Seiya.
Mhm.
So there is interest. It just needs to be shown. And a lot of people, when I show them, believe it or not, they really like his early works, like Sukuban Deka. Not Sukuban Deka, that's a different. Sukuban Arashi. They really like Sukuban Arashi a lot because they when I gave it a plot, they were really enamored by it, and a lot of people were really leaning towards that and like, you know what? If you capitalize and showing that all these other works and all these other crazy stories he's done, I think the story would have been the story would be very different as well.
Yeah. Yeah. In a perfect world, they would work together. I don't see them doing that, to be honest.
Yeah, it is a bit of a strange situation in the sense that, well, obviously we don't know how Toei and Kurumada's relationship is, on a professional level. I mean, the one thing that we all do have to take into consideration is that, for better or worse, Toei being a Japanese companies, particularly older companies, and being run by people that are from the older generation, they have a very particular way of doing and interacting. They have a very specific work mentality, and they have a very particular business mentality. So we don't exactly know how it works. I mean, for all we know, Toei keeps Kurumada at bay, or for all we know, Kurumada keeps them at bay. Like, it's a very, like, we don't know those details, so it's
We'll
always
never know. Yeah.
it will always come to speculation. But what is undeniable is that when it comes to the two aspects of the franchise, what is the literary part, or the mangas, and what is the audiovisual medium, which is the animes, they're separate worlds apart, because while the anime people that only watch the anime, or that only care for the series for the anime, they think that Saint Seiya is doomed, they think that Saint Seiya is dead. Like, unfortunately, on the Spanish speaking sphere, you see comments like that, which is always quite interesting, to say the least, to see. But yeah, they have that type of mentality, right? Like, this series is dead. But you look at it on the manga aspect, and the series is just thriving. Like, it literally just released a new spin-off that, regardless of how you feel about it, the fact that it has had so many spin-offs and continues to produce more, and there seems to be more, it seems to be flourishing more on that side. Like, it seems like they're working on completely separate pots. So yeah, I do agree with you that I think that maybe if they try to organize themselves better to try and come up with a plan that at the very least is, regardless of whether it works or not, but that it's together, that would be interesting to see. But I think that it might be asking a little bit too much at this point, because it doesn't seem that Toei and Kurumada have had like the best relationship as well. Like, Shueisha aside, like, it's always been kind of like a pull and push between them. Like, for example, the anime did things that Kurumada didn't like, and then Kurumada did things that actively contradicted what the anime did, and things like that. So it's always been kind of a complicated relationship between them, I think.
It feels like that. Yeah, has always been. So yeah, and I totally agree. And we talk a lot about that. We every beginning of the year we do this. How do you say retrospective? It doesn't say retrospective. I'm not sure if that
Yeah,
word's correct.
retrospective is a good word.
Yeah, we do the whole year, and it was a fantastic year for the mangas, actually, to be honest. And we're liking it a lot. Darkwing, Re-Rise, Saint Maria, and all the things that is happening. Next Dimension ended. There's this brand new Sensei event. So the manga, the Kurumada Pro is actually carrying the flag for Sensei at this past year because Toei is dropping the ball fantastically for the past 5 years, I guess. Ever
Mhm.
since, I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but what's the name of that Toei Animation president that came to Brazil, Laura? Kozo Morishita. Kozo
Ah,
Morishita came to Brazil 2017 to our Comic Con in here, and
Mhm.
this is the place where he said there's 3 projects coming from Sensei: a 3D animation, a 2D animation, and a live action. It was in Brazil, and after that, oh my God, what have they done? I
everything
mean,
went wrong.
everything went, I don't know, for Toei Animation at least. But on the manga side, it's thriving, and we have never, in my opinion, we have never had this sort of gold era of so many different spin-offs going, which I think it's a good place for us to start. What do you guys think about the spin-offs and the manga series? Are you following them? Do you have
Yeah,
a favorite?
absolutely. People want them, but I think for instance, the company that took on sent this show, because unfortunately the sales for that were low.
Mm,
Um, yeah, they are skeptical to take on another Saint Seiya project. And to be honest, I was surprised that they paid Santa a show overall. And even this is when I first thought about it, and even looking in retrospective now, you would think they would have picked more like the obvious Lost Canvas, which a lot of people want because there actually was an English dub for Lost Canvas.
good point. Yeah. How did
Yeah,
So
it
Lost
was
Canvas?
released. It was released a few years before the
Yeah,
Netflix
yeah.
dub of the.
yeah, yeah, which is yeah. So you would think that would have been the next, and then with you just dealing with Akita Shoten, it would be something completely. So unfortunately, I know copyrights and all that can be really complicated. So I don't know where the whole is. But if they were able to resend the show, they could definitely do the spin-offs. Maybe the holdup is for Saint Seiya next the either the what is it the Kasen bonds edition, the final editions. But I wouldn't be surprised one of the days out of the blue we get some news in English for the English speaking sphere for Saint Seiya. Until then, definitely there's people that they have shared translation, even of Saint Maria that just debuted it. There's without a doubt a adapted community, English speaking community that likes Saint Seiya. And I'm just saying just the US, but throughout everywhere.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I
And
still
we,
feel the manga would do better over. Let me rephrase that. I think the manga has more of a bigger chance than animation projects because of Toei, the way they handled everything so far.
Got it.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think the biggest hurdle you're gonna have to go through is the entry level for it,
Mm.
where it's just like you need the manga, you absolutely need the original series, and unfortunately, the only way you can read the original series is kind of like gatekeep through an app. And there's something else that people don't talk about. The big problem with the app is that it's using an older translation of the series.
Mm.
So when they refer to characters like Deathmask, they don't refer to him as Deathmask. They refer to him as Mephisto, which
Oh,
was
okay.
which is his dub name for the toy for the Deke dub.
Got it.
So unfortunately, they're still kind of being held up by a lot of those old translations.
Mhm.
And if they while it's fine for right now, and while they didn't anything else, it just seems kind of like weird and out of place.
Yeah.
And like it'd be really nice if you just went in and just like at least take the Cosm bonds and re-release those and just with a fresh new coat of paint. And it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Viz has been releasing a lot of re-releasing a lot of their older stuff as of late. I know they re-released Fist of the North Star, Hokuto no Ken, and they've been releasing it in English and hardcovers. And same thing with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They've been doing the same thing too, where they've been retranslating a lot of the older stuff and putting a better translation with a lot of those.
We absolutely. I think definitely, at least I say, even for Arena Classic, is due for a revised translation. I mean, it's been more than 20 years now.
Like 24, 25. Oh my god, I'm gonna go lay down now.
Yeah, we're that old. Deal with it.
I know, but it's like, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to put out. I had to carbon date myself with that.
It is what it is.
Exactly. But you touched a little bit on Lost Canvas, for instance, and we know how Lost Canvas is a huge thing, particularly in the Spanish-speaking fandom. And as I understand, there is a dubbing for Lost Canvas that came into Netflix, isn't it? How did that came? Did that have any?
Crunchyroll.
I don't know. Alan said it was. Alan's a friend of ours. He mentioned Netflix, but what about
it was I think on Netflix, and then at some point it was also on Crunch. No, it was only on Netflix, and it's on Crunchyroll, but only with the subtitles, not the dub. The dub is unfortunately right now in limbo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's
what I made it.
Not even on TMS channel on YouTube.
Yes, but that's only available in subtitled.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Not dubbed. Okay.
Well, it's great that you can finally watch it in English, and I do appreciate the effort that TMS is putting into to put the series like complete on their services. You know, that dub is gone. Like that dub is gone unless you scour like the deepest depths of the internet. Which you know, you gotta go in there like you gotta go with a hazmat suit in there.
Yeah, always. Oh, that's sad. I thought that Lost Canvas could be like this entry point because it was an entry point for a lot of Saint Seiya fans, actually.
It is actually. I was actually talking to someone. I'm sorry, Jackie. But,
no, I was going to say the same thing that it is, and you know, even one of my friends that I introduced into Saint Seiya, she definitely took a liking to Lost Canvas, and she did watch the full dub anime, so she was able to watch it right before it was taken off Netflix. So she enjoyed it, and she, you know, the people that really have liked it, I mean, she goes as far as collecting some of the volumes available in Spanish because that's the closest thing that she can try and read. She's not fluent, but at least from what she's been learned in school, that she can get around it that way. So there's interest. I mean, myself, I collect it. I've tried to collect it in Spanish too, though it's a bit difficult being in the U.S. and you got to get some help or doing trips, whatever you can, collect them all. But I would love to see it in English because I have no doubt it would do well, and yeah, it would also be a good, really good entry point. Even Saturday's show was also a good entry point to the series. But I think it's just. Even when the season was halfway, I think it would have helped if maybe then they would have also brought something else over.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if they weren't seeing the numbers, they didn't want to take the chance. And I think they really had to complete the series out of contractual obligation, as they say.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, this was an interesting conversation about Saint Seiya Lost Canvas. I was in another streamer's chat, and they recognized me. They know me as the Saint Seiya guy. And we had originally this guy was supposed to stream like a game, but we spent 2 hours back and forth just talking Saint Seiya. And one of the things I realized in that conversation, don't underestimate the popularity of Lost Canvas. People really love Lost Canvas, even if they don't like Saint Seiya. Lost Canvas is like the best gateway to it. In my opinion, because I've seen so many people talk about it in ways that I don't see that the original series talked about, and it makes me feel kind of like happy to see like if there's one thing if there's one avenue they want to try, Lost Canvas is definitely one avenue that definitely
absolutely
they should
try. Go from there, Lost Canvas and the guidance, and I think from there maybe reestablishing and building up that Saint Seiya, to bigger friend. Then from there they could absolutely stop breaking things. I know it boils down to you have to start somewhere, but you have to start somewhere smart.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. CC has a lot of material. Only thing I wanted to mention, yeah, because it might seem surprising to somebody that doesn't live, in the U.S. or anyway in English speaking sphere. Why is there? Well, it's worth noting that China, obviously, that they produce a lot of Saint Seiya media. They do release their games, a lot of their games in English.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, and we can talk all day about the quality, for example, of Saint Seiya Awakening, nonetheless. But nonetheless, it's available in English.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's some way for the English, speaking sphere to interact with Saint Seiya in English. So I think I'll say it again. There is a fan base out there that can definitely grow, but it needs to be fed.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, because I think TMS did something to Saint Seiya that Toei's trying and not making it right, which is bring new fans to the franchise, right? Which is crazy to think about.
And I think that has to do with the fact too is that I think because I like because Kuromada only gave only okayed a lot of the stuff, and it really is between between RTS Shoten and TMS. There's a lot more leeway for them to do stuff. So there's a lot of freedom for him to do different things with Saint Seiya, especially putting in Lost Canvas stuff in the video games, and also or having the series available on YouTube. Because if there's one thing I want to touch upon as well, really quick, is also the disparity about even Kuromada themselves, Kuromada Pro, where if at times they don't see if they can't go through a venue from Bandai, they'll go Masami Kuromada will go and do something on his own. For example, recently we started getting these new action figures from this company called Blockies, and it's not made by Toei. It's copyrighted to Kuromada himself. So if push does come to shove, there's gonna be points where it's even if he has to intervene himself and get the license himself and rubber stamp it, then he'll do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a recent thing, right? And it feels like there's something going on in the background on the Sensei world that we're not seeing, that is sort of having its repercussions around the series that we will never know, because it's business kind of thing. But it does feel like games are being licensed directly with Kurumada Pro. Bandai is not showing anymore in some of the things. This whole Shueisha, the final edition thing, it's I don't know, it's one of those things very interesting to be happening. I don't know how that came about with Shueisha. We had the cancellation last year of Kurumada's anniversary event, which is a mystery to everyone.
Yeah, but if I may touch upon that, well, obviously we'll never know the exact reasons. It could be because in the recently with the Saint Maria messages, as well as the one that he put when that chapter for Saint Seiya then came out, apparently he mentioned the translations for his message was that the previous year to 2024 was one of the most difficult years, both professionally as well as in his private life for him. So obviously we don't know exactly what happened, but we started to speculate that it might have been circumstances outside of his control, and possibly something in his personal life that ended up affecting that which makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we'll probably never know the exact reason, but it's very it's a very complicated situation. But it might be not just with might not be with just that, but it is interesting the fact that more companies outside of Bandai and of Toei are starting to do Saint Seiya related things. So who knows what the relationship is there. I mean, there is a reason why Kurumada basically cut off ties, not completely with Shueisha, but there's a reason why he took Saint Seiya from them to another editorial. So
he took his ball and said, "No, you're not doing this anymore."
Not you, but other folks are doing, which I love about Kurumada. He lets other folks play with Sensei, which I absolutely love. Which brings me to the next thing. How you guys are feeling about Sensei right now and moving into 2025? Are you hyped? Are you sad? Are you
So
excited?
cannot be more hyped, especially for Saint Maria. To me, that was the
Yeah.
most welcome thing throughout the entire franchise, Sister. I've been
Did you like
waiting for something shoujo, a shoujo moment. I cannot wait to find out more about that series.
Yeah, we too.
Yeah,
And it was so
3
out of
more
the
days
blue.
to go.
Yeah, yeah. We're excited too. What about you, Benjas?
Uh,
2025 for
I'm super excited. Like I am looking forward to see what happens in this year. A lot of good things are going on. Like for example, Re-Rise of Poseidon is starting to get very, very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to see what Saint Maria also brings to the table with their upcoming chapters. Obviously, the big one is the possible third chapter that it's all but confirmed at this point that is going to happen and finally bring a closure to the entire series from Kurumada, which is the thing that I'm most excited for. And whatever surprises may come throughout the year. But if there's one thing that has definitely been going on for the past 2 years is that the series is definitely getting I wouldn't say that like it's getting stronger necessarily, but it's going very strong, and I think this year is going to be no different. Like I am very excited for what's to come this year.
Also, don't forget too. There's a concert happening in Mexico City. Which,
That's right. We're all planning to
We're
attend.
so jealous of that.
The Cosmocast is gonna meet together for the first time.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Good for you.
Oh,
But okay, so hype like here's the thing. I had to look at things from two perspectives.
Okay.
I have to look at things from the perspective of the outside of the sphere of focus, which is like the mangas and like all this other stuff, like and like other stuff that's not part of the English speaking part of Saint Seiya. Stuff like like the concerts and like all the mangas we're getting, all the new toys. I was excited to see Blocky get the license to Saint Seiya because I also collect Transformers. And they've been hitting out of the park with their Transformers toys, and to see them take that same stuff they've been doing with Transformers and put them with Saint Seiya was a dream made in heaven for me. Like when I found this out, this was like the greatest news of all because like I love their stuff and like I'm gonna support them no matter what because like I absolutely love it. I absolutely love everything that they do, and like I cannot wait to see that. And I'm getting the model kits in sometime this month. And I'm gonna build those on stream. I already got plans for how to paint because I also do model kit stuff. So like I already got like in my brain how I'm gonna paint them and stuff like that. So and stuff like that I'm excited for. Now for the English speaking sphere like everything else like the stuff that we're getting and stuff like that, I'm very concerned.
Okay.
Because I think I'll talk a little. I'll talk briefly about this, but I won't make a big deal about this just yet. So like as you know, we actually did get Time Odyssey here in the United States, and
Nice.
we only got 3 issues, and now there's like absolute radio silence from the company that's making it, and that's making me very, very concerned about things. And also too, it's like with the lack of, also with how things are going, with like how companies are are just cycling through employees, like crazy, especially like the bigger companies like Crunchyroll / Sony. Like I have like my faith in Saint Seiya is in terms of the United States is very, very I don't see a good outlook for it.
Got it.
Because it's not because like there's also too like older animes are just they're like what Manga said, like, if you're not the newest thing you're not the top priority in companies' eyes. So this antiquated series it's just gonna be lost in the shuffle, and like I said, it might still be there. It's still going to be on Crunchyroll some way somehow, and it's going to be less, and it's less because like they take care of series and more like, wait, we actually own this kind of situation. It's like they almost completely forgot that they owned the series, or they forgot, and like they're just like, we'll just leave it there. We'll pay because it's not taking up that much like server space, whatever. So it's like so I have to look at that from that perspective. So unless, like I said, unless something major happens in the next couple of months with Saint Seiya, like when in the English speaking world, I have my faith in Saint Seiya is kind of like iffy at the moment. But that doesn't mean though that I have hope. Like I honestly believe that there is hope. But my problem is like looking at, like, I have to be realistic about as I'm looking at it, and realistically at this very moment, I have my doubts.
Okay.
But in terms of like the rest of the world, like I said, like when it comes to other stuff, bring it. Like I'm like whatever merchandise, whatever new thing you want to bring at me, I will eat it up. Especially like I said, if it's toys. If it's like they said, one of the things that we all kind of agreed upon is like having more entry level action figures and more entry level toys.
Yeah.
Like, myth clots are fine. Myth clots are absolutely fine. Like I'm not saying that myth clots are like, are bad. But I do think, for example, like someone like me that's very price conscious on a lot of things. Says the guy that collects farmers, and like I don't want to. Like if it's bad enough here in the United States, I don't know how much it is in your neck of the woods. So, but having like blockies make more affordable stuff for the fans is stuff I'm very interested in, and stuff I'm championing so much for in 2025. And I'm glad that more companies are taking advantage of that. More companies are taking advantage of that and releasing more price-effective stuff for fans.
Nice, and I 100% agree. I mean, I keep saying here in podcast for the past 10 years, name a better character design than Saint Seiya, because my God, those guys are beautiful. I mean, the action figures for the Gold Saints. I mean, I don't know. It's perfect, but it's the one thing you can only purchase if it's all the little pieces, and it's a lot of money.
Another thing too. Another thing you got to take in consideration too that we're taking that should be noted is going back to myth clots, is the rise of the third party. Again, going back to Transformers, there's these third party. So there's been a market for like third party toys where it's like, okay, if you want a specific character done in this style, we can now make it now thanks to like 3D printing and better stuff. And I'm starting to see that a lot with Saint Seiya, where now companies are starting to come up and they're making new figures and myth cloth size that Toei will never touch. That Toei and Bandai will absolutely never in their lives will touch, because they're like, no, we're allergic to money.
Yeah, we don't know how to do business.
And like, so it's like, I have one of them. I actually got like the manga style Seiya. I believe it's by CS Toys, and it's incredible. It's an incredible piece of plastic for like $35 American compared to paying $200 for the same figure that they only made available in they only made available in Japan, and only at a presentation, no more, no less. And while it's questionable, like in terms of like its quality, it looks really good. It looks. I rather like it. It's like, I'm not saying they're pirated, because they're not. It's a third party. Pirated would mean something a complete copy. This is them making something from the ground up using it. So that's why we call them third parties. And like, there's some iffy things, but it still looks good. It still looks really good, like as a display piece. Especially like you just want to have it on display. So
nice.
Yeah, so that's something else too. It's like something else that you gotta look at. You gotta look at from like the perspective of like the fandom as well. Like the fandom is doing a lot more cooler things as well, especially with like concerning stuff like that. So
yeah, it feels like the Saint Seiya world, the licensing part is where they always get it right. There's always so much cool stuff being done with the brand. I mean, there's some questionable things to be done, but in terms of action figures and the new lines, for instance, of toys, it feels like they're great. Sometimes they cut off, some of those lines, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But it feels like it has a better track record than animations, for instance, to be really honest. Yeah, I think we are ending on a down note for Toei animation on this podcast. But they deserve it. Every single bit of it, to be honest.
I just sincerely hope that whoever's listening, actually I doubt that anybody from Toei is listening.
Oh no, we have a joke that Kurumada Pro listens out for our podcast, because many things many things that we have theorized over the years like just happened. So
If I had the
so
budget
we
to
have
make,
this joke that they listen it, they use automatic translation and they get everything wrong, and then they do everything wrong.
you're there, but not quite.
Jesus. Michael, be careful for next words. They might be listening.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So,
okay,
so
let me
we
phrase it.
joke that we are Kurumada's favorite podcast. So
Okay, let me be careful on how I phrase this then. Okay. I do sincerely hope that, like, even though we're ending kind of like, even though we're saying things kind of a downer, I have hope, and I do sincerely hope that, like, that all I want from, like, the people right now is be loud, but also be reasonable. Like, you have to look at things in the perspective of, like, you can be a cheerleader, you can blindly say all these things, but also to acknowledge the fact that, like, people have, like, their own personal spaces, and, like, they need to be, and they need to be treated, like, differently. Different people need to be treated, like, different ways, in different perspectives and stuff like that. And I do sincerely hope that the fan can be loud and also very understanding. That's my sincerest hope for everybody. And I think, like, the minute that there's a loud, like, loud but sensible, like, crowd of English speaking fans, or fans that can speak English, that's championing this, I think the tides can turn and we can get something done.
Nice. And speaking of that, Ramses, where I wanted to end is to ask you guys, how has it been working on the podcast, publishing, engaging with the fandom, with English speaking fans? How has it been spearheading that world? Because I feel like it's a new world in terms of Sensei fandom, and it's a great one.
Excuse me.
That's a difficult question because, like, on one hand, I'm very much like one of those types of people that's like, I'll interact, but I'm also one of those
Okay.
types of people that's like, I tend to keep to myself.
Okay.
So I'm very quiet. I thought I'm shy or anything. I'm like very observant. I process things. I don't really talk that much unless I'm told to, or, like, or something like this happens, or we got to do a podcast, and then I'm very talkative. I'm very much like a guy that like puts the blinders on, if you will, like, how horses have the thing that they put on their sides, and I'm focused on my work. And
Nice.
well, the numbers could be better. I sincerely wish the numbers can be better on it. And it's one of the things where it's like figuring out like algorithms and figuring all that stuff is like, you need like a degree on all that stuff. You need to go to like a university and like do all these courses for it. It's like, I am not gonna bother with it. So I'm gonna keep at it until I do it. And the only times I really interact with anybody is like if they come up and ask, or like they see me and they know, and we'll almost likely talk about it. Like I said, like the other night, like this guy knew I did host the show, and we just ended up talking about the series for like 2 hours. But like so like I said, like for me, like the interactions is brief,
Okay.
but I do respect where things are going, and I do sincerely hope that like what we're doing is not ignored by not just the Saint Seiya fandom around the world, but also within the anime community as well, which is what I'm more worried about, because I'm always afraid, because like there's all these other people who do better podcasts and that they're more popular, and I kind of have imposter syndrome. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term.
Yeah.
Where it's just like where you feel like you're comparing yourself to all these other great people, and you stand beside all these things, and you're absolutely nothing. And I see all these other people that do these other things, and like I feel, and like they're getting like guests, and they're getting all these other people that I know, and like they can barely scrape getting a guest sometimes, and it feels kind of like off-putting. But at the same time too, like while I do have those feelings, I don't let it get to me, and I just move forward. And I think that's like the best thing I can do. Like just I keep myself moving forward until I do something right, and I just keep at it until then, because I'm pretty sure that's what my dad would have wanted me to do, and I'm pretty sure that's what the fandom wants me to do as well. Just keep on going. So that's, despite numbers, despite everything, I'm still gonna keep at it. So
Do you have fun doing it?
yeah. Absolutely.
course.
You guys?
We talked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our
That's what
numbers
meant.
maybe may not be big, and again, Rams is the one who really knows all that. But um, either way, I feel that we are part of the greater international Saint Seiya community. Even
Yeah.
if we're the only English speaking podcast, I feel like we're part of the greater community, because we often talk to a lot of the some of the members of the other Spanish speaking podcasts, and even international friends. We all different languages, we all speaking. And so maybe not the biggest in English, but I think we have made our mark. I mean, and we thank you so much for having us and inviting us. That for us, that just shows that someone is listening to us out there, and beyond, even beyond English. And that's a great feeling. And for me, I always look forward to recording with these two guys. I have a lot of fun just talking to us and say it. So, and we have listeners. So I think we are marking our place, and we have had our successes too, as far as maybe doing something too for the community. And for one thing, we got, or at least we got to see the Saint Seiya dub return to country, so it has a home. Things like that for us, it's a success. We're there, and for me, we'll see wherever this leads. We're gonna say we definitely got things we want to do with the show, for the foreseeable future. So, no matter whatever the numbers say, we're just gonna keep going.
And also, like, just one last thing, if I can interject.
Mhm.
Support us, like reach, like like we're focusing, I know things right now are a mess on Twitter/X right now. Like, do whatever you can to like help us out on there. We got Discords, we have other things. Make your voices known. We want to hear from you, and it makes us feel like that. I think that's like the biggest thing that you can, if you want to help out, is just make your voices heard. So
Good
yeah.
point. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I mean, from one podcast to another, keep doing at it if you're having fun. That's because all those things about, it's very campy or maybe cheesy, but you first have to have fun, right?
Mhm.
And you talk about low numbers. We have only 5 people live, but I could be here for more 2 hours honestly talking about podcast, talking about Senseiya because it's so much fun.
Mhm.
And I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and with that in mind, it's fun, then I'm gonna keep doing it because just to gather folks around once every week to talk about Set Maria, the new chapter, getting crazy about the news, to have those folks around. I'm super happy, Ramses, that you mentioned how you managed to find Jackie and Benjas, because when you find folks that are alike and you have fun together talking about stuff that you love, it's the best thing, and it doesn't really matter, right? How many? It does matter to a certain extent, but initially it needs to be super fun. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Doing about a podcast, I
Yeah,
guess.
no,
So
no, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, having Benkos and Jackie is just like, I keep on saying this to them, and I'm not saying this to to blow smoke up their rears or anything, but they really are like the main pillars of the podcast as well. Like, even though I do a lot of the heavy lifting, like them being there and their enthusiasm and their energy and like their knowledge has been, it's immaculate. Like, I couldn't ask for like two better co-hosts in my opinion, and I sincerely, like, you, like, I can, like, I can talk their praises all night if I wanted to, for how amazing they are.
that's awesome. And I do see that you have some fans coming. And by the way, I didn't have chance to read the comments on the side, which was thank you so much for everyone who came. We can see here Kami Burn, for instance, Blue Baron, which I assume are folks coming from Cosmocast, and I'm super thankful for you guys to be coming here. Blue Baron has been with us since the beginning, and Kami Burn as well, and others. I didn't have a chance to read all the comments because I wanted to keep the conversation flowing and all that. So thank you so much for whoever came. Before we end, I would leave the space for you, Ramses, to talk about Cosmocat and whatever you want to plug it in, and for Jack and Benjas as well. And thank you so much for coming, guys. It was super, super fun talking to you.
Thank you very much as well. You can find our podcast at www.stcosmocast.com. Again, the address is www.stcosmocast.com. You can find the podcast on all podcasting platforms, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. If you want me to send you a USB with the latest episode, I'll definitely send you a USB with it. I do. We also do live recordings as well over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Prof Ramses VT. Let me put it in the chat here. But yeah, if you can go, I also do live streams there as well. If you want to check out all my other stuff that I do, with playing video games, making model kits, and other assortment of things as well that I do as well. That you can check out. You can check out that on Twitch as well. And yeah, no, and we got all the social medias. We're on Twitter/X. We're on Blue Sky. And we also interact in other parts as well. So don't and we also have a Discord. Please interact with us at all those places. We want to hear from you. It does mean a lot if you guys can just say pop it, target your head and and give us feedback, and we'll because the thing is, ultimately at the end of the day, I want this podcast to be about everybody, not just about us, not just us about talking on the mic, but we also want to make it we also want to make this part of your community as well. So if that makes sense.
It does a lot. Thank you, Ramses. Jackie, Benjas, anything to add?
Oh, once again, thank you for having us. And I'm always happy to talk to anyone about Saint Seiya. You can always find me on my handle Flower Miko on both Twitter X and Blue Sky. I post usually my everyday shenanigans, a lot of cat pictures, especially Katya. She was named after a Santia from Santa Show, by the way, so you can see. I'm usually the one that talks about a lot of the merch. So by all means, if anybody wants to talk about merch, especially the less known things that are not figures, that's what I tend to focus on. But anything Saint Seiya, just hit me up. I'm more than happy to talk about that. Also on Discord, we do have some channels for different languages. So if anybody was in there, but you prefer speaking in your own language, you're more than welcome. But no matter which language, even if in the main channel you type in Portuguese, just talk to us. I mean, whatever. We'll Google Translate or something. We'll get around. Yeah. But we just want to hear from people. Maybe give us some ideas or ask a suggestion, whatever. We just want to interact with the community.
Nice.
We don't bite.
Yeah. On my end, well, again, on behalf of they've already done, but I also want to thank you once again, Bruno, Laura, for inviting us, for having us here in your space, and for allowing us to have this conversation with you. I think that, well, one thing that I can add that also already been said, but I think that the most important part is that this series has obviously proven time and time again that language is not a barrier for it, that there are so many people around the world that are passionate for it, regardless of what language or what language they speak or what country they belong to. The fact that we can, come together and appreciate this series and, laugh at its silly stuff, or, condemn some of the stupid things going on behind the scenes, or praise what needs to be praised, or criticize what needs to be criticized. But all of that, it's a conversation that at the end of the day speaks of how much we love this series and how we come together one way or another to be able to, do. And that's what I'm most thankful for. The fact that we have this, that you were able to invite us to this space, that obviously you are more than welcome to come to ours as well. And thank you very much for everything. And thank you very much for everything, everybody listening to us and giving us an opportunity to introduce ourselves. We would like to interact with people. That's what I can say on this matter. Let's continue loving this franchise that has brought people from so many different places together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the three of you. We're gonna say a few words in Portuguese before we sign off.
One last thing before you go.
Please.
I want to say that you were talking to me before the show that you had problems in English. As an English major, as someone that does a lot of stuff with English literature and English writing, you did an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. I was nervous about it, but
You did an incredible job, and I want to praise you for your incredible, for you really for your English. So I just want to so I'll leave you with that you did an incredible job.
Thank you so much, Ram. You're a peach. Thank you so much for you guys. Valeu todo mundo que tiver aí. Eu sei que a gente fez em inglês. A gente vai tentar arranjar as legendas porque a conversa foi bem legal. E um abraço pra todo mundo, né, Laura?
É isso aí. Boa noite, né? Já.
É verdade. Uma boa semana.
Já meia-noite.
A very good week to everyone, because you know Monday is coming and it's the worst. But
yeah. Let that cosmos burn.
Come on. Let the cosmos burn, exactly. Bye bye everyone. Falou, galera.
Goodbye.